I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpn.fm to discover more.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breaking down the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. She was Cassandra on the U.S. National Tour 2 in L.A., and then on U.S. National Tour 4 multiple times, and then was also Cassandra on Broadway in the original production. So welcome, Leigh Webster, and thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Excited to have you. I love chatting with, you've done so many different productions. You've had so many different castmates, which I think is fun to hear the different story arcs that you have to play and the different relationships you get to play with so many different, actors that you get to perform with. But we got to start at the beginning.
I know.
You did
way back
in the LA sit down production, which for some reason is still called the U.S. National Tour 2 without touring.
Right.
But this predates the 1998 movie. This is almost like it's pretty early in Katz's run. So what was your familiarity with the show before you were able to book it and got the roles?
That's okay. So for me, I started out I worked with T. Michael Reed, who was the dance supervisor for the companies, Broadway and all of them. And I had worked with him in a chorus line, and he had called me and asked me to help him with the auditions in LA when it came in. I guess it was 1985, I want to say. But so I said, okay, I'd love to. And I wanted to be in the show, of course. So I was actually auditioning while I was helping him with these auditions that lasted probably a whole week. It was huge in LA. It was probably, I want to say, over 500 people in line outside of the audition hall, just wanting to get into audition. So it was a huge deal in LA at that time. So I was fortunate enough to be a part of, that whole process, but also I was nervous because I was also auditioning for the show too. So, and they didn't tell me anything until, the very end of the auditions, whether I got the part or not. So that's how I got Cassandra originally.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Were you familiar with it at all, or was this just, you knew to read and this was a big audition?
I had seen it. Yes, okay. I had seen it. So I loved it. I can't say I loved it, as maybe how you were saying what's going on, but it was just such a unique experience in the theater with, the sets and all the set coming out in front of the proscenium and engulfing the theater. So it was just a whole new concept. And of course, the dancing was spectacular, and that intrigued me. So that's how I first, kind of thought, I'd love to do that show. So, yeah.
Wow. So you saw one of the Broadway productions?
I saw this.
Is that what it was?
I did. I saw the original production. Yeah.
So you get the role. You're in LA. Walk me through what they tell you, if you can remember, about, because what's the backstory you're giving, and how much information are you given at that point beyond the dancing and singing and staging?
Right. Well, I was the only furless cat in the show. She is a Siamese cat, so that it speaks for itself as far as character-wise. She was sinewy, she was fierce, she was unpredictable. A lot of different, aspects of a Siamese cat. That kind of thing. So, as far as the background, a lot of our background, we did a lot of working together, crawling on the floor, all that kind of stuff. Any kind of movement with being a cat, that kind of thing. So, but as far as my character, that kind of developed as we went along, I'd say. Yeah.
So I think you have this is one of the things I find most fascinating, because you got to play Cassandra for years, but with different people each time, because you did it in LA, and then you went on the fourth tour, then you went to Broadway, and then back to the fourth tour.
Yeah.
How does that story arc evolve as you get to kind of play with different characters and different actors that might have a slight different interpretation of what Cassandra is versus the previous person?
Right. And Let me just back up a second because I did the LA company as Cassandra the whole time, and I was assistant dance captain.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finished that company, when that company closed, I helped Cats 4, Best in Truck, only as dance captain. So so I kind of stopped completely performing and helped put that company together. So that was a whole feat in itself, you know. So that was about 1 year and 10 months on the road as dance captain. I think I went on a couple times. I went on a couple times. Yeah, I was thrown in, I think, a couple times. And and then I went to the Broadway production. And because I was still, you know, fairly young, I was maybe, I guess, 28, 29. I wanted to still perform. So they had asked me if I wanted to come to Broadway. And so then I went and did Cassandra on Broadway. So there was a little gap in between, companies and productions where I was performing and not performing. So
yeah,
that's how that happened.
As dance captain, who did you go on for when you kind of got thrown on that fourth tour? Was it a different cat every night or was it only Cassandra?
Only Cassandra. Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't until later that you swung and got to cover Ballerina.
Yeah, I covered Bon Ballerina on the, I didn't go, did I go in on the fourth tour? I might have got thrown in once or twice, but it was on the LA company. I believe I went in. I only went on a couple times in as Bon Ballerina. So yeah.
Okay.
When it was like really needed. Cause we had already understudies that were covering those roles. I was like a third cover for that. The emergency only, you know.
Emergency,
that kind of
something has to go real wrong for you to really be on.
Exactly.
I want to hear a little bit about being the dance captain on tour, on the fourth tour, but not really going on. What does that like role entail and the life entail of doing that? Are you just constantly teaching people who are coming in and out of the show? Is it also making tweaks to the dance? Like, what does that role do mostly on tour?
It's a good question. It encompasses quite a bit because, after setting the show, it's really important. And Jillian Lynn, you know, really wanted things really specifically as far as the choreography. So it was definitely a certain way to keep it clean. You know, I was constantly giving notes every night to the dancers. Because, you know, as you remember, the show is just, there's so much going on, you know, and it's a hard show to keep clean. So that was a big part of it. And also, being responsible for, rehearsals, setting rehearsals, being responsible for the understudies coming in. So I definitely was in the studio a lot, you know, they'd be, during the day, everybody be off. I'd be in the studio, teaching the understudies the show.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And also, you know, would be with the bus and truck, we'd be traveling quite a bit going from theater to theater, and each theater was very different. So yeah, we had to adapt to each theater because we would start the show in the house.
Yeah.
So we'd be coming down the aisles, as you remember, around, you know, through the audience and stuff. So each theater was different. So we'd have to map that out each time too. So that was a little, you know, I'd have to get there and map that out and things like that.
Yeah. So when you're doing traveling, like what is studio? Like, is there a studio in each city that you're kind of renting, or are you using the stage when it's not being used? Like it's so foreign to me and it's kind of fascinating. So that's why I'm asking these questions.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We would always have to book somewhere. Yeah. We'd the company manager usually did or the stage manager would help out with that. You know, finding a studio available. I would help out with that too, but, there'd always be in a studio, but we would have to be on stage. It would be important for the dancers to, of course, do the movement on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to have that time, but, you know, a lot of times we'd be 2 days in a city, 3 days. So, you know, the set takes a while. The trucks would go before us and they'd set the set up. So we couldn't always be on the stage, you know. But we would have not a dress rehearsal, but an understudy rehearsal once a week. And that would give the opportunity for the dancers to be on the stage and actually rehearse on the stage. So that was important too. So they could actually be together and we would actually run the whole show on the stage at least once a week.
Wow.
Yeah. So
daunting task on tour.
It was a lot. I was constantly in a studio, basically. Yeah. Either there or at the theater.
Yeah,
one or
it's
the
such a
other.
different environment too, because like I think if you're in New York or in Broadway, it's like you're going to the same place. It kind of feels almost like an office, like you know where you're going. But in a different city, you've got different space, you've got different setup, you've got to find the area, and then you're only there for a day or two. And it's like, let's move back to a new place and start this all over. So it's got to be pretty crazy.
It was a lot of moving parts for sure.
As dance captain, how much did you try to not influence, but you know the character stories and you try to like say, okay, here in that movement, this is why you're here and this is why you're doing. Did you kind of lean into the story aspect of all of this, or are you purely technical dancing, making sure at the right place at the right time with the right?
A little both, I would say. You'd have to kind of connect the two. You know, it was always, there were reasons why you did certain things, you know, reasons why there's a lot of things were happening with the sets, Rumpus Cat would be jumping up, coming out from underneath the stage, all sorts of technical things going on. So yeah, and I would delve into the character somewhat for them, as much as I could, and, help them out in that way. Yeah. My responsibility too, we would have just cat sessions where it wouldn't really be choreography, but it would be, trying to, physically be a cat, because, it was a lot on your body, and there were ways to get up and off the floor correctly, without hurting your lower back, things like that. And making yourself look like a cat, coming up from 4s up to 2 feet, that kind of thing. Jumping onto parts of the set was, it's a little tricky. So we had ways of teaching that and doing that. So there are a couple of things that I'm asking this because I have my own personal answers to this. Okay.
But are there a couple like story arc moments that as you're introducing a new cast member to the show and you're kind of working with them in the studio where they're like, that's the story? Like, really? That's the thing? Like, what were those things for you where every time you had to be like, yes, this is the backstory here, or yes, this is that moment in that dance? Because I can tell you a couple that I'm thinking of, but I'm very curious to hear, is there a consensus around the performers of like, ooh, I did not know that?
Right. Are you speaking specifically in a certain part of the show, or
I'm thinking all of it. Mine spans all of it.
Well, I have to say there's a lot, it's this group of poems that were put together, that didn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. Right. Yeah. So we did they did our best as far as connecting these little stories together as poems, connecting them together with music. So, Grisabella, let's talk about that. I don't know if you want to yet, but, hers wasn't even in the book. So, hers was just kind of wrote in there. So, but I don't know if I answered your question well, but.
I think like as I learned more about the show, there were a couple where I'm like, oh, Demeter's story. Oh, Victoria's coming of age story. Like things that I don't think you recognize, or most people probably don't recognize just watching on stage the first time, because there's so much else going on. It's kind of hard to piece all these things together. But then if you're, talking to a former Demeter or a former Victoria, and then them saying like, this is what I had to embody every night. I'm just so curious. It's like, do most performers come in knowing these things, or is it wow, I would have never thought that. I didn't know that. Now I've got to perform that every day.
Yeah. It is something that you kind of ingest as you go, with the show, because there is so much in it. And it's, everybody sort of like comes together as a tribe. And they learn things, I think, from other people that have done the show before and things like that. So, I think that it does take a while to get all that stuff together. You know what I mean?
How early and how quick did you feel like you figured out? Because like, was it in LA that you kind of were like, I really understand her story and her cat? Like, or was it in Broadway or years later? Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good question. I was lucky to work with Jillian because she put our show together. So that was really helpful as far as the physicality and all that stuff. And, I in LA, I was, I don't know how to say it, but, even though I didn't have a big role, I made an impression on the stage. We'll put it that way. Yeah. So I think it's just I'm a tall girl, I'm a big girl. And, I guess when I did get to New York, New York had done it for so long. We had Marlena Danielle there who'd done the show since the beginning. So it was really fun to work with her. And it did have that feeling at the Winter Garden, that real connection with the set and everything. It was great. Loved working there. But
yeah. So let's pivot to that. Tell me about how Broadway came about. Was it an audition that you went to? Was it this, like, as dance captain, we need a Cassandra come?
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Yeah, I was lucky I didn't have to audition. That was a good thing. But I had done the bus and truck for about 1 year and 10 months. And it was I was feeling like, and I think they knew it was kind of my time too. I was kind of wanting a change, and we discussed it. We talked about it, and the opening was there. They said, "Do you want to come and do it?" And I said, yes. And that's how it happened.
Wow.
So.
And what's that first time being in the Winter Garden like?
I had so many people sending me flowers that opening night because I'd left the tour, So my dressing room was so filled with flowers, and it was an amazing experience. It really was. It was exciting. Everybody was really welcoming there, and really enjoyed working there. I was there about 1 year, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. And how does that differ? I mean, when you have the stability of being able to be in the same theater at night with mostly probably the same cast and castmates versus the up and moving and tweaking and figuring out the slight nuances to each stage, how does that make it easier or harder in certain ways?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question too. I think in New York, you have a life, a little bit more of a life, other than the show. So, when you're on the road, you do form a really strong bond with the cast members. You are family, a lot of relationships start, a lot of long friends forever, that kind of thing. And in New York, you still, while you're doing 8 shows a week, you're able to have a life during the day, and, you're not just on the road, so to speak. So it is different in that way. But, it can't say which one I like better, but no, I love being on Broadway because I had my life as well. And, it was just great being there and just being in the city and, going into the Winter Garden and that whole feeling.
Did you feel a difference in the show dynamics? There's obviously the life dynamics, which is very fair of having stability, probably having more of a routine and friends and family versus being your family, just being your castmates, basically, who's on the bus with you.
Right.
But what about in the show? Does it feel different with that change of scenery every week, or a little bit different by being in a stable one place at the same time?
I guess probably I felt better because, I'd had that time to take class, maybe stay strong in my body. Was rested, not rested. I shouldn't say that because that's hard. But I was able to get massage, that kind of thing. Every week everybody got a massage if you wanted it. I just, felt better, as a performer there than, being on the road and, having to deal with the traveling and this and that. So it was
probably a little easier to get on the subway and come to the theater. Fly and then go and then perform right that night and that type of thing.
Exactly. I actually rode my bike to the theater a lot too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What about audiences? Did you notice a difference in tour and audience versus Broadway where, tour, you're only going to be there for a week or 2 days. Whereas Broadway, it's always there, and it ran for so long. It really felt like it was always there.
It was always there, right? A difference with the audiences on the road, I have to say, were very a little bit more excited, I would say. And maybe because I got to the, Cats a little bit later than in the beginning of the run, that could be too. But I was lucky enough to, Johnny Cash saw the show when I was there at the Winter Garden. I got to crawl up against him. Lorna left, quite a few people. So Sammy Davis was a big one in LA. He loved Cats. Do you remember Sammy Davis?
Yeah.
Are you too young?
No, I definitely did. He came to the LA performance many times?
he would come quite a bit, and he'd come backstage. He'd love to come backstage and chat with everybody and watch everybody put their makeup on. And then he'd go out and watch the show. Yeah. He came a couple times.
Wow.
Yeah. He was very nice man. Yeah.
That's cool. So you just were sitting in there getting ready for your show.
Yeah. And he'd come back.
And walks this.
Yeah. This little guy. Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died.
I think one of the most fun parts about getting to do it in so many different settings, in LA, doing it on tour, being behind the scenes on tour and on Broadway. What are some funny, memorable moments of the, like, I'm never going to forget? You know, it could be as silly as this person fell or this thing broke or this thing didn't happen, or as, you know, like other parts from just very memorable moments like Sammy Davis Jr. or Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
Being there.
Oh gosh, I have to think. There are quite a few. Just things that happen with the set, you know. I remember Rumpus Cat was supposed to come out of the floor. He didn't, so somebody else steps in, things like that. You know, the trapdoor wouldn't come up. Anyway, I'd have to think about this for a while.
Nothing that just jumps out as I'll never forget.
There were so many. Day. I usually have people that remind me of these stories. You know, I'm not really good like that.
Who else was, you mentioned Johnny Cash, and Sammy Davis Jr. Are there any other celebrities that you're just like, couldn't believe when they showed up, backstage or that maybe saw you on Broadway or in LA? I'm
sure there were some. Oh, in LA there. Yeah. You know, there were a lot in LA actually. I can't remember who, but, that opening night was pretty amazing. Yeah. There were quite a few people there. You know, I can't remember, but yeah, there were a lot.
Be your dream celebrity to show up today if you were to say?
Oh gosh. I don't know. Barbra Streisand? No.
Barbra Streisand. Okay.
I only mentioned that because a friend of mine and I were talking about her the other day. So, but
yeah, I mean, let's see if we can get her. She could come. She has a new book. Right? Like we're recording.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. That's what I was talking about with somebody. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to hear a little bit about the transition from Broadway back to the tour, the fourth tour, because you went on in the 90s, right? Again. And then, because I think you do tour, Broadway tour, if I'm correct.
Yes, you're right. What happened was whenever they needed me as a dance captain, I jumped in. So I went, that's what happened on the fourth company. I went out there for about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, maybe. No, a little longer, about 3 months. Yeah. Because somebody left for a while. So I jumped in till somebody else came back, that kind of thing. I did that with Broadway. When I left Broadway, I came back quite a few times, jumped in. Somebody was pregnant. I went back in, maybe I was the one going back in 3 or 4 times,
You're the emergency speed dial.
Yeah, exactly. So that happened for a while, but I only went back as dance captain, on the the last one.
And did you go on any times for those or no?
No, not then.
Not then. So when you're getting called in to do these kind of quick jump in dance captains or emergency covers on Broadway, how much what is that preparation like? Because, it's one thing when you're doing it over a period of time. It's another thing to be like, we need you for 2 weeks and come in and it's like, do you come in and go right into the studio? Or was there a lot of muscle memory of I still remember most of this?
Oh, yeah. I still remember all the choreography, probably. It never goes away.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do it, but it definitely never goes away. But, I would definitely have to take that time, though, because, you don't want to screw anybody up on stage. So you have to remind myself of when I need, positions and things like that, who's around me, that kind of thing. But it would take a couple, I would get my book out, in other words, and figure it out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just jump in, No,
I mean, physically, it's so difficult. It's probably not easy to just, stretch one day and go in and do it. It's got to be some practice that goes into that. But yeah, there is I guess also the story arc of the things of you're going in and do you, kind of remember, I got to do this here, or I've got to be here for that moment. I've got to have the look over to this cat at this point because that tells part of the story. Is a little bit that I would almost wonder how much of that is just burned into your brain versus okay, I gotta get back into the swing of this.
Right. There are moments like that, like you're saying, that are important, in the story, or not that there's a big story, but you know what I mean? In moving forward, that, you have to make sure you're on the right spot. You're looking over whatever it is, so there are cues that are important for sure.
So last question before we go to some rapid fire, I want to ask is, what relationships did you play mostly with Cassandra? Like, who was the cats that she most related to, spent time with, family with, dated? Like, how did that kind of come around? Like, as you thought about doing it for so many years?
I would say the closest on stage would probably have been Bomb Ballerina and Demeter. They're sort of, not that they're a trio in any way, but they're sort of similar cats in a way, same age, that kind of thing. I would say Victoria as well. Yeah. Would relate to her. That's probably what I'm. Any
male cats? Like, was there any, we might be dating, we might be flirting? How much of that is thought? I just love going back to how much of this is thought through versus how much is just naturally happened? Right.
I think there are some subtext with it, Demeter and McCavity and Bomb Ballerina McCavity. There definitely, I would say Cassandra and McCavity as well. Okay. Somewhat, so, but yeah, it is, there are some subtext there with the other cats, with each cat.
Yeah. What prevented you from going down the dark McCavity rabbit hole?
Well, they wouldn't let me, would they?
They protected you. Okay, let's do some rapid fire. If you could go on for one night as one cat, doesn't matter if it's male, female, in your vocal range, whether you could or couldn't do it. If you could just perform one night as one cat, who would you want to go?
Wow, nobody's asked me that before.
I think a lot of my questions, most people probably haven't asked.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind trying Jenny Eddie Dots. I know that sounds weird, but it's so opposite of what I would do, Yeah. And it would be fun, Get
a little tap and...
Yeah, she was fun and, I don't know, that would be really fun. I mean, I'd always love to have done a Victoria, performance as Victoria too, but I was never that type, but yeah.
I love it. Okay. Who are your favorite and least favorite cats in the show? And I'm going to say characters as in their personalities and not any performers.
Oh, okay. My least favorite? That's a hard one.
There's got to be one that bugs you.
That bugs me?
Yeah, like which personality, if you were hanging out with the Jellicles, which one would be like, this one's...
This so annoying. Probably Skimbleshanks, I guess.
Skimbleshanks, okay. Love it.
Love Skimbleshanks, but he's so annoying.
I love it. What about favorite? Who are you gravitating towards?
I sort of love Syllabub. She has that angelic, voice and just sweetness and
Okay. What is your favorite song from the show?
My favorite song? I guess Gus the Theater Cat.
Us. Okay. That's hopefully a good sign for my last question. I always ask one fun one. And since you got to be a dance captain for many years, which cat do you think would be the best dance captain? Like if you had to just throw a cat in the run cat show or any show as a dance captain, who'd be your top choice?
Probably Victoria.
Ooh, Victoria. I was thinking Mustapha for some reason.
Yeah, that's true too.
I like it, Victoria. Okay. All right. $1 million question. I have argued at length that I don't think Grizabella should be the right Jellicle choice. So as someone who has years with the show, on it, behind the scenes, it in and out, the choreography still today. Are you going to pick Grizabella as your Jellicle choice, or are you going to send something else up to the heavy?
Well, that's interesting perspective. I haven't really thought about that. But what? So you do not think she should have gone?
I do.
Do I get to ask why? Or
I will answer why after.
Okay.
If you would like, but because I can walk you through some questions on how to come to your answer if you don't have one directly.
Right. Okay. So, somebody other than Grisabella.
You can pick Grisabella, but then I'm going to ask you a lot of reasons of why you think she deserves choice.
Okay. That's a good question. I kind of feel just naturally that Gus or Deuteronomy, that's the obvious choice that would go to the Heaviside Layer.
I like it.
Other than Grisabella.
Gus is the number one
choice
after Grisabella.
Oh, okay.
Of all of my guests. Old Deuteronomy is number 2 after Grisabella of all the choices. So those are very common.
Okay.
And I think the question that I would ask, and the question I always wonder is, what is Old Deuteronomy's criteria?
Criteria for being the one to go up?
Choice, yes.
Oh, well, he's older,
Sorry, let me rephrase that question.
Okay.
What would you if you're Old Deuteronomy, each night that you get to do this once a year, how are you making your decision? Do you have a criteria? Do you have a set of guidelines? What does that look like?
As Deuteronomy going to the Heaviside Layer, or as me?
If I'm Old Deuteronomy and I get to choose, and I'm the version we get, he chooses Grisabella,
right?
But in other versions, why Grisabella over Gus, or why Grisabella over himself?
Right. Good question. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay. I can give you a little bit of like the.
I'm only saying I think he should go instead of Grisabella because he's older and he's kind of ready to go. That's my thought on that.
Okay.
But yeah. So you think Grisabella should come back as a glamour cat?
I think she should come back and go the year after. I think that she should be next year's choice because she should, the redemption story still works, but she can spend time with the family and that she doesn't need to be immediately sacrificed. And so I think that is my main reason why. And that's why I would send Gus. Why over Deuteronomy? So that's an interesting question, is why over Deuteronomy? The part for Old Deuteronomy I don't know is what is his, like, who takes over? Is he ready to take over? Like, when does he get to go? Because I do think he's in that conversation, but I don't feel like he's ready to go. Whereas Gus, I think, is kind of at the tail end of his life and might not make it to another ball as much as he relives his past. Old Deuteronomy seems kind of like he can live forever, and eventually he's going to decide he's the choice. Right.
I kind of feel like Gus is probably more to go than Old Deuteronomy for sure. Because Old Deuteronomy is he's a big part of the tribe as well, and so, and maybe Gus not so much. And
I think whenever Old Deuteronomy goes, we get a different show. Because it's like a new leader. It's over, and there's still obviously the tribe, but it's he's been at the helm for so long that when he gives up the reins, you're going to have some fresh perspective coming in.
And who would that be? That's
isn't it Monk? Like, it kind of seems like the answer is Monk.
Maybe Monk. Yeah, you're right, Monk. I was going to say Mistopheles, but Monk. Yeah, Monk makes more sense for sure. Yeah.
But this is what I've debated with everybody for months on end, and I'm slowly getting more and more. Grisabella still has the majority of the votes. She's still about half, but only half. In a show where she 100% of the time gets to go. So I feel like I'm doing the Joe Colord's work slowly.
You're doing some justice.
Yeah. This has been
interesting.
So fun.
Oh, so great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming and sharing your experience.
It's really cool.
And thanks everyone else. Yeah, thank you. And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the Catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of us who listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, TheWrongCatDied.com.